whenever I see an equation I'm asked to solve and it is set equal to 0, I think first of, well, what are the common factors, if any, of the terms on the left side? And the reason I want to do that is because I want to make things simpler. So I'm going to factor out anything that's a common factor. And in this case, we've got 8 as something common between these two. So I'm going to divide each term by 8 and write what's left over. I'm going to factor out an 8. And then from there, the zero product property says, well, hey, if you have a factor times another factor, you have two values times each other and they equal 0, then one of those factors has to be 0. So either 8 is 0 or x squared plus 12 is 0. One of those has to be true, or both. In this case, though, 8 can't ever be 0. So I really just need to focus my efforts on the x squared plus 12 and figure out what value of x would make that true. So I'm going to move the 12, trying to get x by itself, move everything away that's added to it or subtracted, and we're down to x squared equals negative 12. And then before, when you had a situation where you had x squared or a value squared equal to a number, we used the square root property. But one of the requirements to use it was that the number on the other side, this negative 12, was positive. And so we really can't use the square root property by its definition here. But it's a similar process. We can still get x by itself. We can think of it in a similar way. So x is equal to the positive or the negative root of what's on the right side. So I just need to make sure that I put the negative 12 underneath the radical. And now I can't just leave it like that because it's not in simplified form. We need to break down 12 and we need to deal with the negative under the radical. And so I like to rewrite negative 12 under a radical as a negative 1 under the radical times a positive 12. So I can break up the rules of multiplying radicals says that you can break them up into pieces like that. And so I like to do that because now I can focus on simplifying rad 12, breaking it down for 3. Okay, so I've got a pair of 2's. So that's 2 rad 3 simplified. And then we've defined the square root of a negative 1 to be the imaginary number I. So we don't have a real number answer. We have an imaginary one, but that's okay. So over here I can say we have plus or minus, and then I've simplified rad negative 12 to be I times 2 rad 3, or 2I, because we usually write the I after the number, and before any radicals, any square roots. So those are my two options. Either of those are going to get me 0 back in the end when I check it. And I plugged in the negative 2I rad 3 and did a check there to make sure we get 0 back in the end, and we do. And similarly, if we plugged in the positive, it would work as well, because right up here, either negative or positive of 2I rad 3 is getting squared. And so negative times negative brings out a positive, positive times a positive brings out a positive, and you end up getting 0 both ways. So final answer, plus or minus 2I rad 3.